and I hope that all of us have been able to celebrate this all-important day. But because the celebration is for the Women's Month, so the celebrations are not over yet. So even in our individual homes, the celebrations must continue. They should not only be limited to the stadia and the halls in the townships and the villages. Okay, at this point in time, I am going to call upon the acting DDG for Teachers and Professional Development Branch, Mr. Temba Kojana, to come and welcome all of us. Shall we give Mr. Kojana a round of applause?
Honorable Minister, my colleague, we are always like twins, myself and Mweli, but we differ in terms of size and shape. That team is taller than myself. We have been bonded by the minister to work together. The Chief Human Resource Officer of Vodacom, Mr. Matimba Mbundela, the Secretary General of the Teacher Unions and the Presidents, if they are here, of NATOSA, NATU, PEU, SADU, and the State African School Officers in. The Secretary General of the School Governing Board Association, present. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of us at this august occasion in the month of August to the opening of our 5-day training program for the teacher center managers. We are honored to be welcoming our partners as well, that is the stakeholders in teacher professional development. We talk here about the Education Data Relations Council, SACE, ETPT CETA, the National Education Collaborating Trust, UNICEF, Mindset, Vodacom, and the Cisco. This gathering marks an important beginning in our efforts to strengthen the delivery of quality learning and teaching. Therefore, teacher centers form an important part of our national system to professionalize the teaching profession, to improve the subject knowledge of our teachers, and to improve the teaching skills of our teachers. That is why we have decided to lock all ourselves in one venue for 5 days, starting from tomorrow. You are all welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kojana. I think this is a very, very important occasion in the sense that I think since the launch of the integrated framework in 2009, this is one of the key milestones that we are achieving now as part of the implementation of that framework. I think this year has been a good year, particularly in terms of the implementation of the framework. We've launched the CPTD management system this year. We're training all teacher center managers this year. So it's really a year of hope, and I am sure that with all these initiatives, we are really going to ensure that our key deliverables are actually achieved as a sector. So thank you very much, Mr. Kojana, for the word of welcome. Somebody, when I indicated that I am going to be the program director this evening, and want me not to forget to mention and acknowledge the fact that it's Women's Day. It's Women's Month. They sent me a message that I found a bit odd, because it started by saying, in 1814, women had no rights at all. In 1914, women struggled for rights. In 2014, women are always right. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, we'll call upon the Chief Human Resource Officer at Vodacom, Mr. Matimba Mashiku. Just to indicate that Mr. Mashiku, before Mr. Mbunge, okay, I think that's, okay, my apologies, yes, it's Mr. Matimba Mbunge. I don't know why they've written Mashiku here. Okay. Yeah, just to indicate that before his role, he was the managing executive HR for Vodacom South Africa until in April 2014. He has worked for the Vodacom or Vodafone Group since 2004 and spent 3 years on secondment to Vodafone as regional head of organizational effectiveness and change and regional head of talent within Africa, Middle East, and Asia Pacific regions. His previous experience includes HR roles in blue chip companies such as BMW South Africa, as well as Unilever. Shall we put our hands together for Mr. Mandela to come and give us a technology test this evening? Honorable Minister, it is an honor for me to be sharing the platform with you this evening. And shall I say, all protocol observed. This afternoon started with having a family of visitors who happened to come from England, and I am quite honored to be here this evening because it was a walk into memory lane. So we spent the morning at the Union buildings, which was very lovely, and of course all the questions were coming up because they were dressing down the stadium after the celebrations of the Women's Day yesterday. And after that, we went to the Apartheid Museum and spent about 2.5 hours at the Apartheid Museum. I must say, for me, it was an emotional roller coaster because we're hosting people at the same time you're reliving a history. I must admit, it was my first time to be there, and I think I've visited over the years to go. But it was quite an interesting observation because coming out of there, we had a discussion about how the country has evolved and the role that corporate South Africa is playing in enabling the country to grow and continue to become better. So as Vodacom, we're very proud that since 2009, we have been partners in the program of Center Teacher Management Capability Building. Shall I say that we are also proud that the Minister took time to acknowledge the partnership that as Vodacom we have played at the budget speech. We really believe that that acknowledgement means that as Vodacom, we know that we're on the right track. And actually, if anything, it has given us an opportunity to commit more on what we'd like to do. For us, being partners to the Department of Basic Education means that we believe ICT is a core enabler in growing core capabilities in basic education. Of course, the life of a child starts in your department, Honorable Minister. And we'll be failing this country if we don't invest in those early childhood opportunities by putting across a meaningful ICT platform. I think often what happens is that people may ask, why did Vodacom choose to invest in this program?
It is because we believe that by improving the learning and teaching environment, it will help our business grow. We know for a fact that for us as an organization, if we start having those customers early, if we start by making sure that we invest in teacher management, we'll have better teachers that will enable our country to be the best in the world. We have so far this year upgraded about 40 center teacher managers in the year. We're aiming to deliver 60 by the end of the financial year. And Honorable Minister, if you allow us, would like to take full ownership and complete all of them in the next 2 years. Our experience in this regard is that center managers play a crucial role in the realization of the returns of our investment, because as an output, we've seen strong, passionate, innovative, and skilled center managers. Vodacom recognizes that training is not an event, but rather it's a journey. And it's for that reason that we believe that the journey has to continue, and it is one that we prepared to have a stronger investment in. As part of our contribution in education, we have decided to provide free access to selected educational sites. These are the Department of Basic Education Educational Portal, Mindset Learn, Siyavula, as well as Vodacom's digital classroom site. These will be freely accessible as from the 12th of August. Only to Vodacom subscribers, I have to say. Other announcements will follow in this regard, but it is a journey, and we believe this marks a major milestone in this journey. We are also working in partnership with Microsoft and the Department of Basic Education to install Office 365 at the teacher centers and schools we have equipped. This will facilitate free voice calls, document sharing, and common email address platforms for the users. Wow. This will go a long way in establishing effective communities of practice among the teachers, and therefore good practices and content. The subject of communities of practice is one that we as Vodacom, and also in partnership with Vodafone, have seen work effectively. It is for that reason that we believe this will be a key enabler. We have communities of practice within Vodacom, so Vodafone, spanning across geographies as far as India, as far as New Zealand and the UK. So when well utilized and when the investment is taken care of, communities of practice is one of the best ways of sharing content, because it is boundless. In closing, I would like to thank the Minister and senior executives of the Department of Basic Education for affording Vodacom a continued partnership. I also want to take the opportunity to wish all the teacher center managers present an effective week of learning ahead. Power to you.
Really gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to be here this evening to address you. Deputy Minister M. Basurti, senior executives of the Department of Basic Education, representatives of the teacher unions that are here this evening, the school governing bodies, and our partners. A number of our partners are here this evening. So we've got Cisco, these are Vodacom partners, Mindset, who's our content partner, Intel, and Microsoft. And of course, last but not least, I'm sure you're aware that we've got some players from Orlando Pirates here this evening. And so we're delighted to have them here as well. I apologize that the others didn't get such a big applause. But we're delighted to have you here. And I think I'd like to also add that Vodacom was a sponsor, a corporate sponsor of Orlando Pirates, as well as Kaiser Chiefs. And one of the teacher centers that we're supporting at Vodacom is also one that's linked to the club, so we definitely, to the team, so we definitely want to see them coming to some of our sessions at those teacher centers. So we're going to do our best to try and bring them in to encourage the teachers and the learners as they visit the centers. So you must wonder, what is Vodacom doing here at a function related to education? Education is our flagship program at Vodacom. We believe that ICT is a key enabler in this country to take the education to another level. And hence we partnered very early with the Department of Basic Education. And my personal thanks really go to both the Minister and the Deputy Minister for seeing that this partnership could turn to the reality that it is today, to support us in what we need to do, us having really long conversations, deep debate, deep discussions on what we'd like to do as an organization to support government. But first, we started with understanding what are the priorities of the Department of Basic Education, and then said, let's see what we can do to support you, in delivering on the objectives. And one of the key things that came out was in the area of teacher development. And so Vodacom started with implementing 9 ICT centers around the country 2 years ago. And today, we're very pleased and proud to say that with the department, we now have 40 teacher centers where we've provided a number of things, from connectivity to equipment, to content, to training, and of course, last but not least, maintenance of those ICT centers. And that would not have happened if we didn't work in partnership with the partners I mentioned earlier, but most importantly, with the department itself. This year we'll be rolling out another 20 centers, so about 110 teacher centers are in place in South Africa, of which 60 would be connected by the end of this financial year for us, in partnership with the government. So that's more than half the teacher training centers, and as I've committed to the Deputy Minister, we're trying to see how we can do even more in future financial years, and all the centers aligning the same. Coming to content, I think really important here, I want to just talk about how some of the successes of having rolled out the center has resulted in us bringing more and more partners on board. One of my colleagues who spoke on my behalf on Sunday, because I was not available, mentioned that we're going to be zero rating content on the Vodacom portal. So all Vodacom customers will have access already today. The content that's provided through Mindset, for example, through Theodula, the DBE site, as well as the digital classroom.co.za is zero rated. What do we mean by zero rated? Vodacom customers don't have to pay any data fees to utilize. We're going to have a lot more exciting things around content that we'll roll out and plan to roll out in the next 12 months. So we're very keen to see the uptake of everyone in this room, but also of learners and teachers, because we believe that ICT really genuinely can play a huge role in driving education in our country. And so we're not saying that the content must only be accessed by kids. Learners, educators, parents, whoever believes that that content is going to make a difference in building their skills and developing them, and to make them more employable, for example, please access that content. We really, really encourage it, and we encourage you to drive people to the sites. In terms of further content content partners, we've had a number of publishers that have contacted us. So Via Africa will install digital textbooks in all the computers at the 40 teacher centers. Again, fantastic because they've seen the success of what can be achieved through the teacher centers, and they're going to cover all subjects for grades 4 right up to grade 12. Again, a huge contribution from them, and they've come on board as a partner, willing to do this because they believe that this is a route to pass some of that information. Cambridge University Press, they're going to be offering us textbooks and teachers' guides. And again, these textbooks and teachers' guides will be at all 40 centres, and they also provide access to their Hot Maths platform through the centres. Macmillan Education, they've come on board and they're offering a variety of services for users registered on the digital classroom, which I mentioned earlier, digitalclassroom.co.za. They will also distribute copies of their expert educator to all 40 centres. And last but not least, Oxford University Press are offering toolkits for teachers to be used again at all the centres with data discs, PowerPoint lessons, etc. for a variety of topics. So the more the centres are used, I think the department will also see an upliftment in terms of the quality of education that the educators provide in the different schools, because it's just opening them into different opportunities that they can utilize at no real cost to anybody except the partners that have come on board. This, of course, is only made possible with the success of partners seeing the value of the centres. And the value of the centres is driven by many of you centre managers driving it with the teachers, ensuring that they attend the training programs, getting the communities in, getting the kids in, and using the actual centres. This week we are also activating the new Youth Skills program in IT. And specifically here we've secured a partnership with the IET, which will see training provided at 9 of our ICT centres, so there's one in every province that will have some training facilities provided. With our partner Cisco, we're looking to see how we can grow that footprint into the other centres, and with time, but we'll start with these 9 centres, where 135 unemployed youth will be given the opportunity to gain some IT skills. Looking at that, I think the sky's the limit. This is just a start. So for us, we say, let's use these teacher centres to really achieve what we believe can be done for education in our country. And I think with time, the education system will start reaping the benefits from the start of these teacher centres. In conclusion, I'd like to just congratulate the team that put together the excellent training program and the manual, which all of you have seen. Schoolnet, of course, big thank you to you for facilitating the program. All the partners to the program that I mentioned earlier. Last but not least, both Minister and Deputy Minister, as well as your teams, for constant support and openness to new ideas and embracing technology, for us extremely, extremely important.
When you find your true love, when you feel her hold you, and fly to her side, and make her your home. All through your life you may dream on alone. Once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her go.
Thank you very much. Minister of Basic Education, as part of the institution that is part of lifelong learning, I continue to learn. I never knew that part of doing gumboots involves showing 6 packs. So
I've learned today that it's part of it. Minister, I must also say that Mr. Kujana, my colleague, I take full responsibility for having misled you to say that time is money, and therefore you delivered the shortest lesson plan simply because we operate under cost containment. Colleagues from Vodacom and all important guests, I've been requested to come and present the Minister of Basic Education, the minister that you know, who has been working in education for as far as I can remember, and even beyond. As a teacher, she comes from a family of teachers. She's a leader in the ruling party, the president of the Women's League. She's been a member of the provincial legislature and member of the Executive Council in Gauteng, and subsequently became the Minister of Basic Education. The Minister of Basic Education and the Minister of Higher Education and Training are the only ministers so far who hold a record of having been returned to their portfolios. When I retire one day, Minister, I will write somewhere that I pride myself to have worked with the only minister at that time who was able to return to her portfolio. The minister always tells us that if it does not reflect in the classroom, then it's not worth looking at it. And I've also heard a saying, using the famous McKinsey report, or quite well known McKinsey report on teacher development, to say that a system is as good as its teachers. And I've heard, I think it was last week and the week before, saying quality education in the hands of capable teachers. Minister, you now have the right audience. These are the people who have to ensure that we deliver quality education through capable hands of teachers. And quality education will happen in our lifetime. Minister, please come.
Thank you very much, Program Director. That we greet all ladies and gentlemen who are here, but also start off by acknowledging yourself, Program Director, senior officials from DBE, the DBG's chief directors and directors who are here, and all other officials. Acknowledge the leadership from teacher unions. I've seen the presidents of other unions and the SGs. Acknowledge also leadership of our school governing bodies. I see my old friends, Kelly and the rest of the group that you're always with. Colleagues from higher education, Professor McKay from UNISA, Chief Executive Dade Matimba, and your entire leadership from Vodacom, UNICEF representatives present, the leadership from SAIS, EDTP CETA, with Nombulelo this morning. I didn't know we're coming here together again. We arrived this morning from the women's celebrations in KZN, organized labor. I've acknowledged governing bodies, business partners that are here, NGOs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for honoring us. I think also in our partners with your presence on a Sunday evening. I'm really humbled to see so many people coming out to this dinner Sunday evening. Thank you very much for coming. Program directors, who said being a Women's Month, let me also acknowledge ourselves and say, Amanda. Thank you very much. And I must say, Program Director, I was quite impressed to see this only Gelmo tenders in the gamboo dance all by herself. And I said, go girl, it doesn't matter whether it's a testosterone intense environment, fight it out and fight for your own space. And say, power to the women. I was saying to colleagues, they says, alone 10 of them, I'm sure she takes them up one by one. And that's the spirit and program director, that we'll fight for our spaces wherever we are and open up for others. So program director, it does give me great pleasure to say a few words on this very important day, which is the official opening for teacher training program. And I'm quite happy. And we're very happy to hear that we have 131 teacher training centers, including 40, which have been generously supported by Vodacom. And indeed, program director, teacher centers are very important to us as a sector. I want to share my experience that as a young teacher, during the days of apartheid, the teacher centers were some of the NEF centers which brought us together as teachers. Used to be places, because teacher unions used to have our own teacher centers, because government was not creating teacher centers for everybody. So that's where we used to exchange notes. As young teachers, inexperienced sometimes, we exchange resources. But also it was a center which also enabled us to have discussions amongst ourselves to say, what does it take to be a progressive teacher? And those are the centers where we are plotting also, to say, if indeed we have to emancipate our children from even mentally as organic intellectuals, what are the things we're supposed to do? So it was centers also when we were plotting to overthrow the apartheid state. And I'm sure, and obviously there's no reason to overthrow a legitimate state. It's not the pariah of the world. You can only remove it through a vote. So that one we had to remove to ensure that indeed we bring peace and justice in our country. And that's the role that teacher centers play. So it's some of those organs in the system that are really very much as a department. As a department, we firmly hold a view that the classroom, as Mweli has said, is a centerpiece of learning and teaching. It's correct that I always say that the nation, sometimes the classroom is a bit too far. And if you blend and blend, and whatever you blend doesn't impact on the classroom, it does not worth your time. Because all that we are about is about the learners, and the learners are in the classroom. They're not DD offices, they're not anywhere. So that anything that we plan must impact and change the lives of children in the classroom. And as I said, if it doesn't, then it's not worth it. And we said also the core of this learning and teaching is a competent and confident teacher. Because teachers are indeed the backbone of any functional education system. So our commitment is to provide quality instruction to all our learners at the hands of capable teachers. And our job is cut out for us. It's as simple as all. They don't have to do so many things. Just want to provide quality instruction to all our learners in the hands of capable teachers. Everything else is an extra. And the NDP outlines the challenges very simply. It states, I quote, says, despite many positive changes since 1994, the legacy of low-quality education in historically disadvantaged parts of the schooling system persists. So it means we have to continue addressing this legacy of low-quality education in disadvantaged communities. Because it seriously hampers the education system's ability to provide a way out of poverty and development for poor children. The great promotion of learners who are not ready in the primary and secondary school phases leads to substantial dropout before the standardized matric exams. And I do hope that as we continue during the week, we will be able to systematically analyze the system for all of us to be reading from the same hymn sheet to say where are the problems and how do they manifest themselves. So that as we plan, we all have a common understanding. We've done a lengthy analysis in the department through our own internal assessments, external assessments, but also lots of reports that we've been getting. And we are comfortably aware of where the problems and what the challenges are. So again, we have a clear sense of where things are. Because international tests and local tests tell us where the problem is. So once we focus on historical disadvantage systems, we also agree in the department that we also should not lose focus on your high performance parts of the system. Because those very parts that perform well in the country, internationally don't perform well. Our peers, our teams tell us that even our affluent schools are not at the level of other affluent schools. Comparatively, the same conditions, same circumstances, just still don't perform that well. So it means the entire system itself needs our focus and attention. And again, as I said, through our tests, and again, I hope during the week we'll get to see, even at that level, where are the weaknesses? So that even our best parts of the system needs to be the best in the world. But some of them are highly resourced, they have everything that we assume needs to be in the school, but as I said, unfortunately, are still struggling. The recent Maths Olympiad is still in my mind and in my heart. And, we hosted the Maths Olympiad in July. We took supposedly about top 6 in the country, and we sadly could only come with the bronze. Couldn't even go to silver. So it does show that even our brightest find it very difficult to compete with the other bright in the world. And that's why we have to really work hard, all of us as a system. And as I said, during the week, I hope it's too late to even discuss what the issues are, but we know what the issues are. And I do hope as center managers discuss, they will also have the privilege of understanding what are the challenges in the entire system. And it is clear that if we're to break the cycle of poverty and underdevelopment and advance the economic empowerment of our people, we do need a radical transformation in education. So this training workshop occurs 1 week after the Council of Ministers. We met last week from Friday with MECs to say, let's put our heads together and say, what is it, or what it will take to turn the system. Let's pull our resources, our minds together. We have information. What are the key levers that we really need to turn around to make sure that the system gets the traction that it needs? And we agreed as Council of Ministers, or we resolved that radical transformation, amongst other things, means drastically improving the quality and efficiency of the entire system. But more importantly, the quality of teaching and learning in the schools. And in order to achieve this, we need to continuously upgrade the content knowledge of our teachers. However, today, we're taking a step further, training those in charge of all our teacher training centers. So I think these are going to be very helpful hubs to ensure that our teachers can access the necessary information. Because sometimes as a teacher, people think teaching is it's quite difficult with all the resources you need or to create them yourself. And it makes your work much more easier if you are also privileged with lesson plans or other exercises that have worked before, and share the experience with other members of your sector. So we think our plans should include building a network of dedicated principals who foster a vibrant, conducive learning. And these are effective managers and are able to provide administrative and curriculum leadership. Because all of us involved in the sector, we know look for a good school It's in the hands of a good principal. That's the bottom line. We sometimes pour so many resources in schools trying to turn them around. Just sometimes putting a champion in school turns things around. And we have a number of schools that I can tell when we visit. Let's talk about the experience of Google. And at some stage, as a province, when I was MEC, we decided to close the school. Because we're throwing everything we knew in the system. Team building, what? Everything else. You know, all the things that had there, you know, change management. All the things in the book, consultants, and we just resolved that it's not working, let's close the school. And we're going to hand it over as a police station so that could be used as a police station. No, it's true. The school was left with 70 kids, and there was no point in continuing the school. We were only left with 70 kids because parents are also not stupid. They may be illiterate, but they know where quality lies. I'm sure they see from the way teachers walk in the school. I mean, even if they're uneducated, they can see a principal's going to kill their kids. And I don't want to talk about some of the principals that I've seen even working at the gate and just, you know, all myself, savings. I don't know why. I even see that principal in the way, in the heat of Limpopo, in a heavy leather jacket, you are wanting, yeah. So so you see that even our parents see it. So we were then about to close the school. We sent one person to school. I can tell you, the last time I knew about Kukulani, there was a stampede at the school and to call police to take parents away because every parent wanted their child at that school. And it took one person to inspire, to motivate, to have the whole school to really refocus. And the school now it's suffering from severity. It's one of those overcrowded schools where parents say, if my child doesn't come here, no child is going to learn. Because my child must come into the school. Right. So we know that good schools are in the hands of good teachers. And we can cite lots of examples where, unfortunately, the principal is the soul that keeps, in most instances, the schools running. So, moreover, our plan foresees teachers who are supported by knowledgeable district officials, including managers of teacher centers. Because again, in our analysis of the system, again, I think as we'll share with yourself during the week, it's also in phases where there's dedicated support and effective support from districts that we've performed. We analyze our system is performing quite well. You can scream as you like and say 30% of that. At the effective phase, the system is performing 80%. You can continue any, as I was even saying today, see if you can remove those who pass with 30%, we'll remain at 80%. Because there are less than 200 kids who pass with 30%, and more than 300,000 kids passed above 30%. So it's a storm in a teacup. But it's not many of our kids will have passed at that level. They make less, 0.something%. They don't even make 1%. So that's why I said if you could remove them from the, we'll still be performing at 80%. But go to your senior phase, I think we also say we share with yourselves, go to your senior phase, your senior phase, that's really, say, the sudden death for our kids. They fail in big numbers, they drop out in big numbers, they get involved in all sorts of difficult things, youth criminality or drugs, and all sorts of things. And the problem is that those schools that perform well don't have those problems. Go to any school that, I'm sure they never had a teenage pregnant child. Go to Denron, they won't have teenage pregnancy, it's a problem. They can't even remember who is giving. Go to schools that perform under 30%. So there is a clear correlation between curriculum, management, leadership, and the well-being of our learners. Right? And the problem starts in the intermediate phase, center managers, so we have to focus on resourcing and really understanding what is it that we need to do with the intermediate phase resources to support the teachers. It gets even worse when you come to the senior phase. So we decided with MECs then let's focus in the areas where trouble starts. Not at the final end and get poor teachers in the FET phase, running morning classes, afternoon classes, not going for holidays, sleeping at schools, simply because they have to make up for the deficit that comes from the lower grades. So we really are looking forward. We are looking forward to you, all of you, just partnering us to ramp up performance in the lower grades. School starts, education starts when it starts. Any race starts when it starts. You miss the first, when the gun goes, you miss the first shot, you are gone. You can't make up. It's going to be very difficult to make up in the race. So the first 5 years are critical, and we have to make them meaningful for our kids. It's good. We're saying we're glad, we're happy, you can still do more in the FET phase, but let's ramp up at the bottom. And that's what we also are looking forward as we go on to teacher center to say we must ramp up at the bottom. As I say, we foresee teachers who are supported by knowledgeable district officials, and the teacher centers are very core to us. As MECs and ministers, we discuss what we think are non-negotiables that we need to do to get right our education system. And it is no coincidence that most of them are centered on effective curriculum delivery, which needs to be our main priority as educators if we are serious about this radical transformation. So what we've picked up that is your learner wellness is always linked to your performance. It's a car that is not moving, all animals live back under it. So all problems, the dust, everything settles there. So if it's not moving, everything, even dead animals will die under it. Everything just dies there. So we have to get this car moving, and we're saying let's use curriculum as the key lever through which we can be able to package all other things that we need to do. And I know that you are aware what we really agreed on, but I thought as MECs just give us criticism. You know, I used to, as a teacher, I used to be an MEC for social development, and these social workers knew I knew very little about social welfare. And I would give them instructions to do this. I will get them, okay, MEC, what was in the Child Welfare Act? Because when talk about Equal Act, this person went give MEC the act, then talk about Equal Act, but education, let me read the things that we said so that since 2020, Durham's policies for that put on 7's way. We said, amongst other things, that we really, if we're serious about radical transformation, should be EIA in the school, reading, writing, and counting. We have an easy job. It doesn't need any research and theory. We must get our kids to read and create a culture of reading. That's the bottom line. Again, program director, now that I have this big audience, no, it's politicians. When you say big audience, I want to buy a this movement and we also have a slide which I think again will share with you about this reading culture. You know, sometimes as an MC or as a minister, the ruling party will just want to roast me and say, no, but now we're not on so we're not seeing any progress. And I always use that slide against them to say, you know what, this is not about us only, even including yourselves. Because the slide says, Russia, which is a leading country in the world, it says only 5% of Russians are non-readers. 35% of them are more than 65% of them are advanced readers. These people do research, you can write articles, you know the big book. They say 65% of them are advanced readers. And then it looks at us, it says, only less than 5% of South Africans are readers. Less than 5%. So which means those will be doing, so I always say, it really struck me because then I thought about, okay, I can remember when when I was still using public transport. Bakale pepe move, abafuni longa ngithi ukuthi mefi longa abafiki naphambi bakale move. Before the governor said they're already giving away their paper, they started from behind. And then it says only 5% of us are advanced learners, just in opposite direction. And I was saying to them, this is not going to take us on, it's going to take a reading culture in the country. Our kids must see us reading. They must see us walking into the bookshops, they must see us going to libraries. That's the only way we can lift up, because we only have 4 or 8 hours, we have to do everything with them. The rest also has to happen in society, where there is a reading culture. And the last anecdote, just, and then I'll just go through the speech, just around the reading culture that I think is very crucial for us. I was saying to colleagues, State Department, I think 2 years back I was traveling with the president, and then I just jumped into the train because I think we were in France, so I wanted to go just go into a tube train. And as the train pulled off, almost every person in the tube train pulled out a book. My age group pulled the hard copy. The younger ones went for Kindles. And everybody was reading the tube train. And I reflected back home to say, I want a car. And I was like, jumping up. Somebody was so get on where I don't see what the when the train pulls, then the spirit arrives. And they'll be singing until the next stop. So, and it will take much. So I say, we don't. So it's reading country. Still smiling in sort of peasants because doing segafo. The whole day, not only times they were calling on God, and he really wants us to do well. We're really undermining his objective of bringing us here. So I said there must be a reading culture in the country. Run those campaigns that really make our people fall in love with books and reading. Buy books. And tell my magazine. Tell me what your mom paid, I'm magazine. What your mom paid, oh, drum. There is one. When we talk about we've also committed ourselves to improve performance in medicine science, to improve our performances in languages. That's what also came quite strongly from the Ministerial Committee on Promotions. The 30% says we have to improve languages. We have to continue to focus on teacher qualifications, their competence and training. Because again, our research tells us our teachers are adequately qualified. But what we have to do really is to focus on their competence and their content knowledge. But also a focus on district performance, on their monitoring and support to schools. We also committed ourselves to ensuring that every child has a textbook for every subject in every grade. We want to improve library information services. And that's why I say not only for schools, just that culture of reading amongst our people, to encourage people to read, to inspire people to read, to have these book clubs, and really getting, even our kids must see us reading. Because to say, when you're going to your food, because I want to get food with them. Just big so funny. I can about one of party, one of mama could come on cake, like my cake, and never understood mama couldn't cake. But I get a cake, mommy hamburger. So find out when you know mama would tell you, get cake, like I'm not in cake, and I said, what's done it. We want to focus on multi-grade and rural schools because they constitute, I'm told, they've increased from 25% to 26%. So they're a huge sector in our schooling system. And so it's a sector that we think can overcome. And again, that's where I see teacher centers helping us a lot. I saw that teacher was in the solidarity. Now 7, she must teach all grades A1. But of said one day 7 because I can bring 7 teachers, so one child per teacher. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So when someone phoned me, I said, I actually we are watching hours like money. And it's not that we don't care about it. we agreed that we have to attend to is because the largest part of underperformance in the city is also in the multi-grade schooling. And in some instances, there's nothing we can do about it. Because if the village comes down one is grade one season, we have to provide education. And some provinces like the Western Cape have found a recipe of working those multi-grade schools. And in some instances, they're even effective as compared to mono-class schools. So we want to focus on them, but more important, I'm glad to give Vodacom as our partner access and utilization of ICTs. We just think that will help us to enhance the work we do, to improve and to make up for some of the deficiencies that we experience in the sector. So we want to move in a big way in the ICT space. But obviously the infrastructure and including basic services and their maintenance, because again, it's important that our kids and teachers are in comfortable environments that protect their dignity by ensuring that indeed we continue to provide them with basic infrastructure. So for us, teacher centers are critical to advancing this quality education we're talking about. In our new term, we are using to refer to district teacher development centers and provincial teacher development institutes, so that we can cluster them much more tightly and map them properly, that all our schools receive support from existing teacher centers. So if there are 141, we have to cluster them in such a way that the 27,000 schools benefit in a very structured and organized way, so that it's not a haphazard, so we have a center here because there was a venue. That center will be linked to a number of schools so that we can support and monitor both the center and the schools that are supported by the center. So with the 131 teacher centers across South Africa, with at least one teacher center in every education district, teacher centers play a critical role as hubs for the professional development of teachers. They should be sacred spaces for teachers, principals, and subject advisors to access resources and the support they need, thus enabling and nurturing the growth of the professional learning communities and contributing towards the professionalization of the teaching profession. So new information and communication technologies offer a variety of platforms and opportunities to enrich the strategic role of teacher centers. However, in order for teacher centers to play this role optimally, we do need competent center managers and centers with functional infrastructure and human resource capacity. As much as we believe that functional schools are in the hands of functional principals, the same applies at every level. A functional teacher center will be in the hands of a functional center manager. So the theme for this week, long-term teacher center training, is building functional teacher centers and competent center managers in support of quality learning and teaching. Indeed, we've invited ourselves as teacher center managers across the country to participate not only in training, but also in sharing of ideas as we begin to strengthen, and also sharing resources amongst yourselves. Because we have also in the department a forum of education of district managers. And the forum enables us to create a platform for district managers to share experiences, skills, and knowledge, so that again, if there's a good practice elsewhere, it's known, can scale it up, and the resources can be shared across the country. So representatives of all provincial education departments, teacher unions, and school governing bodies have also been invited to participate in a bid to ensure maximum benefit is gained from these centers. But an important milestone that we're expecting also in this conversation with yourselves is the draft of the norms and standards of teachers. So what are the minimum, what's the minimum basket of resources, of services, and resourcing to the center that is required to make it an effective center. So we do hope that by the end of this week, we will have that framework of draft norms and standards for teacher centers. So it is important to ensure that we all have a shared understanding of what defines a functional teacher center and a competent center manager. And with this in place, all teacher centers should be able to play their meaningful role to help grow a new caliber of motivated, knowledgeable, highly competent and professional teachers and principals in South Africa. And we can only achieve this through our partnership with the private sector, and thanks very much to the private sector, to civil society organizations, again, we thank them for being here, and government agencies that work with us in these teacher centers. In this regard, our partnership with Vodacom Foundation to provide ICT resources to more than 60 teacher centers and to train all center managers is acknowledged and welcome. Thank you very much. So we'd like to thank Vodacom Foundation for partnering with us in this way. We'd also want to thank Cisco, that also is a very reliable and helpful partner. To thank Mindset Network, and Professor McCoy from UNISA always a friend. He was always been a friend of the department and very supportive in all our endeavors. Thank you very much for that. And also thank all of you who have partnered with us in this endeavor. So importantly too, we thank the important stakeholders in teacher professional development who are here, our teacher unions. We want to thank PEU, NATU, NAPTOSA, SATU, and SAOU. We want to thank the EDTP Center, SACE, and the Department of Higher Education and Training, as well as our school governing bodies association that are here. Finally, I'd like to thank each of you center managers and provincial education officials for your commitment and effort you have made to join us this week. You can make an important difference by ensuring that each of your center provides the support that teachers in your communities need. And I encourage all of you to make the most of the next 5 days, and I wish you well, a rich and rewarding learning experience, because I believe that together we can make a formidable difference. And I'm reminded of the well-known African proverb which states, you cannot lift a stone with one finger, you need the whole hand. If we take the whole hand as partners and as stakeholders, we can undoubtedly lift the stone towards a quality learning and teaching for all. Thank you, Professor Director.
Our task and responsibility to ensure that our teacher centers have highly sophisticated connectivity and have appropriate technological resources to enable and enhance teaching and learning in those sites. And we are therefore grateful to Vodacom for what they've done, but not only to Vodacom, also to Mindset, to UNISA, and all our partners and Cisco in doing what we did. I'm certainly excited about the fact that Vodacom has really taken the huge transcendental step forward, and they've done so with Telecom Foundation. And they say listening is an art. And indeed, as we spoke about the challenges that we face in education systemically in terms of bridging the digital divide, our conversation with Vodacom was taken very, very seriously. Both in respect of teacher development, professional development of teacher centers, as well as the creation of a cloud, where you could almost have an infinite archive of information that you could access for purposes of enhancing your ability to educate, to teach, and to learn. And I think this is critical. We must recognize that Vodacom is a service provider for more than 50% of our users of our mobile phones, and therefore they are within reach of the users. We must also recognize that there are other role players who are more than happy and willing to join us in the creation of this cloud. And what is exciting about technology and its transversal nature is that indeed we access the education cloud which we are going to create through Vodacom. We are not going to pay anything for it. So you could download all the data that the Department of Basic Education wish to place in its cloud free of charge with compliments from Vodacom. That means that we have a particular task and responsibility in ensuring that we create, through our architecture in terms of the digital environment, the appropriate resources that could be accessed. And already a wonderful start has been made. We hear about Africa, Cambridge, and other partners who are willing to provide us with the digital content of our books. So e-learning and e-books become a reality in the lives of our learners. And being in Gauteng and listening to the noise that comes from Gauteng with regard to the digitization and the creation of a digital environment in our classrooms, we certainly think that it is a step in the right direction. And the reality is that very soon, many of our learners, if not most of our learners, will be utilizing either a mobile phone or a tablet or an iPad or a computer or a laptop in order to ensure that this becomes, well, as an enabler of learning. And all the information and resources that we provide through either the Vodacom cloud or the telecom cloud or the education cloud would be available and accessible to those learners and educators. It's really an era of self-directed learning. It's really an era of facilitating learning. And you as center managers must be able to ensure that you provide not only the facility to access content, but also the methodology and the pedagogy of ensuring that you are able to utilize that content through technology as an enabler in the learning and teaching environment. So your task is a very interesting one. And I'm so heartened to hear that as you set out here during the few days, I think it's 5 days of your workshop, you certainly had experience, direct exposure to the possibilities through Mixit and other devices and other technological opportunities that can present itself in the learning and teaching environment. And please tell me, was it exciting or not? The organizers of this event must be really acknowledged and thankful for their wonderful commitment to this particular task. Because if we do not start with our center managers, then the resources that we have there are of no use or consequence. I can share with you my own experience in visiting some of the centers, and I've seen the unevenness in those centers. And immediately I see a center that is vibrant, exciting, attractive, busy. I know that there is a center manager who knows her job in that particular center. And then you might find a center that is less exciting, rather inactive, with all the same resources. You say, is the center manager doing his or her job in this particular center? And therefore we felt that unless we basically drive home the understanding of what your roles and responsibilities are as center managers in that particular environment, and the possibilities that you can create and generate through this passion that you have as leaders in those institutions, we are not going to succeed. So what we might have now are 40 fully functional, connected centers. But I can assure you that within the next 9 months, we will have no less than 110, and within the next year, we will have at least 140 teacher centers countrywide. We said we are not going to wait for teacher colleges to be established. Things are changing so rapidly, and it's not only about what you learn in order to become a teacher, it's what you learn whilst you are a teacher, because the environment was changing so rapidly. And teacher centers therefore become very, very paramount. Now, I would want to believe, and I'm sure you have certainly reflected on this, that as center managers you must have a clear understanding of the education paradigm. That you must know why we have an annual national assessment, where we test more than 70 learners, and why we do an analysis in terms of the performance of our learners in order to identify the gaps. And what kind of interventions are necessary as managers of those centers to ensure that the performance of our learners and our educators in those institutions, in the surrounding schools, are indeed improved as a result of that analysis. Because if we don't do that, it would be a mechanical exercise of writing the annual national assessment and having a sense of where our learners have gone from, but doing nothing to change the condition of either the knowledge of our learners or educators. And I'm sure you've discovered, and please tell me if I'm wrong, that there is a challenge with regard to content knowledge amongst our educators, especially in the areas of mathematics and science. And there is also a challenge amongst our educators in the area of language itself. The language indeed has become a barrier, and continues to be a barrier for both educators and learners. Now, many of us don't have the benefit, not yet the privilege of having English as our mother tongue. And unless you are not unless you speak another language as your mother tongue, you will understand how difficult it is to assume, integrate, embed another language as efficiently as one who utilizes a language as his or her mother tongue. So the barriers in relation to the performance of our learners as a result of this language barrier are something that we cannot ignore. And certainly all our centers must become centers for the enhancement of literacy. Because the professors from institutions of higher learning will tell you that just a learner who excels in mathematics and science because of language difficulties might not perform as she or he would. So your cognitive element is one element, one dimension of performance. But your linguistic element is another dimension that is often ignored. Now, why do I say so? I say so as a result of my interaction, and I like to observe and listen, observe and experience the realities in our school. And we, Minister and I, do not visit schools without entering the classroom. And not very long ago, I visited an excellent school in Brits, in the Northwest Province. We're celebrating its 100th anniversary. And I interacted with the learners, and I was amazed at their ability. It was historically white, predominantly Afrikaans, but these learners were good in terms of numeracy, in terms of literacy. And I had a conversation with the educators prior to my visit to the classroom, and they indicated to me that they don't have much use and value, or they don't place much value in the workbooks that we have designed and provided. And I said, but let's test it in real life. So we went to the classroom and I engaged with them in Afrikaans. I thought, we are a free Afrikaans crowd, and I was able to interact with the learners in Afrikaans and especially in Afrikaans, and I learned by a book before. So then I did the switch. I told them to take out a book, what they use, history, and read a paragraph in English. And I started asking the questions there. And the performance dropped from 100% to less than 50%. Not because they were not right, but because of the barrier of language. And immediately the educator understood the message of the workbook, that it is to enhance the ability, particularly for a first additional language. So the Afrikaans-speaking child, or the Zulu-speaking child, or the Xhosa-speaking child would be able to utilize the workbooks to enhance his or her ability in a first additional language. And I think we must recognize that. So the workbooks are there, not for show, but for use, and we've got to monitor that and promote the use of the workbook and teach and educate our learners about its responsibility. Now, tonight's event is about partnerships, celebrating partnerships. And Orlando Pirates are not here by accident. And I said that the listening experience is important. I'd spoken to the chairperson several years ago, and I indicated to him, we have this wonderful, extraordinary club with a wonderful, extraordinary reputation. Perhaps not as maybe almost as good as Vodacom in terms of support. More than 50% of the population supports Orlando Pirates. Kaiser Chief friends who disagree. That's the nature of the debate. But what I said is that you can draw thousands to your stadium. But what is it that you offer other than recreation? Aren't those people that are there entitled to better education? And shouldn't we do something in those venues where we can enhance education? And true to his word, he made the commitment. The gentleman out there is responsible for a wonderful ICT center in Orlando Stadium with state-of-the-art technology utilized by not less than 14 schools in the vicinity and the community wherever they want to and teach them in development. So that's not the end of the story. Because we want more. Radical transformation is you don't have it in one stadium, you must have it in all the stadia in the country. Yes. And the commitment is, yes, we're going to extend throughout the country. Thank you all. so in Bafokeng. So it means that even those that are responsible for our sport, and we are all passionate about our sport, having particular responsibility, Amaboka are promoting reading. To say, we said, let's make an enlightened rugby play, so that you can read. It's not only about muscle, it's also about brain. How can you combine brain and brawn in a way that we can say, wow, we really had it going. And certainly the players of the Springboks have gone to schools to promote learning and to read. And it's a wonderful experience. I see our meter now, and Cisco is saying that they are willing to provide support, human resources, and the architecture of the education free of charge. So this goodwill is there amongst our collaborators. And I think what the radical transformation is not about working in silos to say, this is my territory, Vodacom, no other signal can come here. It's to say, we have a shared responsibility in providing quality education, and whether we are MTN, Vodacom, Cell C, Telcom, we've got to do it together and collaboratively. And that is the radical transformation within our country. And I think we must say, colleagues, you have a wonderfully prepared meal that you're going to partake in. But ready to say to you that if at all we're going to achieve this radical transformation, it would mean that you've got to be the drivers of that change. And unless you take your task seriously and understand and appreciate fully the immense potential and possibilities of what you're going to achieve, what you can achieve, we're not going to succeed. You see, the women that marched, the charter that was adopted some 60 years ago, and the women that marched in 1956, nobody believed that they would be contributing meaningfully to change. They did so already in 1912, and they did it again in 1956 in the thousands from all corners of the country. And people looked at them, but it's the women that led the march. And they believed that there would be change, and they believed that there was going to be freedom and equality and social justice and quality education for everybody, and that they would no longer have to carry the dogmas. It might have been a dream to some, but it was a vision that they had, and it was a vision of a better future. Today, in the 20th year or the 21st year of our democracy, we can say thank you to those women who are bold and brave and audacious now, who believe that change must come to this country. And I see in our gathering wonderful women who indeed can bring about this change. So let us pay homage to their memory, to their commitment for change, because it is, after all, their children that we are speaking about when we speak about our learners. They basically are the caregivers, they are responsible for this population over here, and certainly they would want the best for the children. So if we want to pay homage to those leaders who are so heroic in their enormous contribution, let us do so by providing quality education to everybody. So to all the partners who have made this event a success, and I'm not going to mention names because I think it's a collective effort by all stakeholders. Thank you very, very much, and I do hope that you've all enjoyed yourself. My minister, Angie Motsefa, who also happens to be the president of the Women's League, and this month I only call her president and not minister because she's the president of the Women's League and it's a Women's Month, has asked me to convey her best wishes to each and every one of you, and to say thank you very much for being in attendance, and we wish you all the best in the future. Kia ora boka, Kosi, bye.
Shonolo Masale is a Orlando Pirates footballer. I feel it's a very important part of the learner's education because the facilities there are very good, and the technology that is used there, I think, enhances the learning process of students. And obviously, if most of the students, which forms part of the youth, do well, then it means that it serves the community well, and then it gives something back to the community and says that, although we won't all become footballers, but there's other ways to make a living and to obviously lift up your community. So I think it's a very good initiative, and well done to the government, and also to the basic education department to be exact, and Vodacom, and obviously Orlando Pirates. And I think, you know, they should keep it up. And you know, it's always nice when, you know, we can also step in sometime, you know, just to motivate some of the learners there. And then, you know, so I think it's a very good initiative. The most important thing for teachers is for them to realize that they become more of a parent to students than parents themselves. So they should just, you know, keep teaching the kids the right things, advising them in the right way, and helping them to become better people in the future.
I'm Joe Mashirisa Holala, well known as Gautri, playing for Orlando Pirates. Firstly, let me thanks Mr. Chairman for coming up with that idea. Yeah, and you know, yeah, from my side, I think, you know, we're in the world where it's been dominated by the WW, you know. So it's good for the kids so that they can go and learn and acquire some skills out of that center, so that they can move with time in this world, you know, to all the teachers around the world, you know. This world depends on them, you know. I think they are holding the future for this world, you know. The more they acquire skills and make sure that they provide the kids with the right information, and the teachers out there that they should just put their heart, you know, make sure that they provide the relevant information and be patient with the kids, you know.
Maya Makanji, Chief Officer, Corporate Affairs, Vodacom Group. At Vodacom, we believe that ICT is a key enabler in initiatives in society. For us specifically, we think that the best way we can give back as an organization is to play a big and key role in the education sector, because we believe technology will be the enabler in taking education in our country to the next level.
Teacher development centers are very critical because they are accessible to educators and learners throughout the country. We've established 40 functional, connected, highly sophisticated centers, and we're in the process of completing another 60. Well, it's another 70, I beg your pardon. We've had wonderful partners in terms of creating these resource centers, teacher development centers. Vodacom has been quite an important partner and forerunner in terms of what we have achieved thus far. We are also grateful for the other partners that have joined us, UNISA, Mindset, Cisco, and other stakeholders who have made this possible. At the heart of quality education lies the capacity and ability of professional teachers who have the ability, confidence, and the competence to teach. And we are of the opinion that these teacher centers will certainly enable educators to contribute meaningfully in the classroom. However, a center depends solely, if not largely, on the ability of the education center managers to understand his or her task, as well as to attract educators to the center, and educators and learners and other stakeholders to the center, to ensure that it becomes a vibrant place of learning and teaching. And therefore, the workshop that we've set aside, proudly sponsored by Vodacom, has achieved this particular goal, in that we have more than 170 teachers, center managers who have attended the course, became familiar with its vision and its mission, and the instruments of technology that are necessary to enable it to provide quality education for purposes of professional development to our educators.